I'm Denton Davidson for Gold Derby, here with the talented hair and makeup department heads of David O. Russell's latest film, Amsterdam. With me are Lori McCoy Bell, Adruitha Lee, and Nana Fischer. And I'm going to start with Lori because you've worked on several of David's films. What keeps you going back, and what do you like most about working on David's set?
Working with David is it pushes your creativity to a point that you didn't think that you could go to before. So knowing if you're going into a David O. Russell film, you're going to be pushed to the limit in a great way and are expected to create things on the fly that you never thought was possible. So with creative people, I think we always like to work under a little bit of stress anyways. It's not easy, but it's like really trying to rack your brains and pull things out of a hat that you don't think you could do, and you do. So I personally like the challenge of that. I also love the way that he directs and he delves into each character in such depth that I, as a hairstylist, am allowed to go in and get into that hairstyle as deep as he did with the character, putting things in like, how they grew up. What kind of music did they listen to as a kid? Were their parents married or divorced? All of that stuff is like character building drive for me as well, for doing the hair and getting those nuances in. And he allows you that freedom. And I just kind of have a little shorthand with him that I've learned through the years. And that's why I jump on that train. Yeah. Like, I'm there for you, David. I respect him immensely.
Adruitha, how do you and Lori collaborate on this film as hair department heads? There's so many looks and characters. Can you talk about how you two come together to plan everything, and then what that working process is like throughout?
This has been a very unique experience for Lori and I. We worked together years ago on a film called Walk the Line, and and then we actually met on one right prior to that. But we've known each other for years. We haven't worked together in a while. And I was at work one day and got a phone call from Lori and said, "What are you doing? Are you available to do something?" And she went into who it was, and I got really excited about it. She wasn't able to, Lori can speak for herself, but she was not available for the film. And it didn't have a name. It was just David O. Russell. And she told me just a little bit about it, and I got so excited because I was such a huge fan of American Hustle. I think I saw that film 4 times. I loved it. And I had heard about David. I had worked with Jennifer Lawrence a couple of times, and I remember us talking about Silver Linings Playbook. And anyway, this being a period piece, and David O. Russell, and a film that Lori, was a part of. He had, that she was too busy to do it at the time. So that's how I got involved with it. And so I started collaborating with David on, just the different things that he wanted to do. And it's really interesting collaborating with David. He's very much involved, very much, knows what he wants to see. And we just went back and forth. I was on the East Coast. He was on the West Coast. Lori was up in, I think, Canada, weren't you? Or somewhere.
Yeah.
And anyway, so she had conversations with David, and but pictures went back and forth, and finally I said, well, let me try some things, because he wasn't exactly sure what he wanted to do with this lead female character. And so I ended up in about almost 4 weeks. I did about 20 wigs. Different colors, different lengths, different shapes, different styles, and all the styles that he would send me the pictures of. So finished these wigs, and then there was the day came when we were supposed to do the test, and I flew to LA from the East Coast to do this test with David, and Nana was there. I did not know ahead of time. I knew who the lead male was, but I did not know it was Margot Robbie that I would be working on. And I had done 3 films with her prior. And so it was really exciting when I got there. But anyway, just all these conversations with Lori back and forth, and then with David, and then to the test. And we did the test. And at the end of the day, we were all called into the set. The set where we were, and we were told that there was this virus that was going around, and then it
Oh,
shutting down. And this was March 12th. So I got on, so the next day, I mean, and the rest is, what can I say? 9 months later, we end up doing the film. But that's how I got started on it with Lori.
wow. Nana, in terms of makeup for this film and just the volume and number of cast members, what was the most challenging aspect for you as the makeup department head?
It wasn't just a challenge. Of course, we had many challenges, but as a makeup designer, it was just like such an honor to work with somebody like David O. Russell too. I've been a huge fan of his work and of all the people who are in the movie, all the casts. And then to have like a bouquet of things you can do as a makeup designer. We have prosthetics, we have beauty, we have period, we have wounds and bloods and guts, and really creative looks of periods from the 1900 to 1930s that as a makeup designer it's just like a feast. And then David O. Russell, always his films are always very character driven, so as a makeup artist to work on a character is, you cannot ask for anything more. They're not just like your straightforward looks, they all have a character, they all have a backstory. So everyone, like Margot, for example, goes through 5 different looks. We're telling the story through her looks as well. And I mean, a lot of challenges as well. Like Drew said, we had the pandemic, so we were shooting in the middle of the pandemic. So like in the first few weeks, I lost some of my key makeup team, like artists who couldn't join in the beginning, and then we had to move around and get other people on board, because like, as you said, the volume of cast members, I had to employ quite a lot of people. So then with the testing, it is quite a challenge. Then this wonderful cast who came from all over the world, like Matthias, Alexandro, they all came from the East Coast, from Europe, from all over. And sometimes we wouldn't get them until a couple of days before we start shooting. And then, David wanted to do very strong character driven, like Timothy often, like he needed we needed to make teeth for him. We needed some prosthetic pieces and weeks and things. So sometimes the turnaround was super fast. But through my experience, I was like, I realized very early meeting and having all the meetings with David and Lori and Drew that things can change at any time. So I was very well prepared. I have over like 100 little prosthetic pieces which were already filled, not necessarily for somebody, but I had them in the trailer ready at any time. So for example, when Matthias would come, he would say, give him scars all over the face. So I had everything ready and except the kitchen sink. So I could just pull from the trailer, and I had a great team. We were printing tattoos. We had prosthetic noses on standby. We had dentures made in last minute, contact lenses. So all of that doesn't happen without a big team. So I was lucky that I had a great team, but also being prepared, like, we did the test a year before with Drew, and then we closed down with COVID. We were going to shoot the following week, but then we shut down for a year almost. So it was in the back of my mind, when it comes back. So, I had lots of reference books and things like that. And so there was a little bit of preparation time we could, I could prepare for when we then actually did start it again. So.
And Lori, you're working with Margot Robbie, who we've discussed, Taylor Swift, Anya Taylor-Joy. Talk about just the hairstyles. What is the look that goes into a 20s or 1930s look that you want to make it authentic? And what was it like, working with those 3 women in particular? Oh, Mike's. Can't hear.
Yeah. Anytime that you're working on a period movie such as Amsterdam, you do want it to be period correct. So we would sit down with each one of those actors that came in and look at all the possibilities that we could do with their own hair, and if any of our wigs can work as well. Between Drew and I, we set every possible wig that we had in every color, every length, every texture such as like she did on the test for Margot. We had that for everybody, for Anya and for Taylor to use as well, and even Beatrice. So when they came in, the first thing I would look at is like for Anya, for instance, we tried wigs on Anya, and we also used her own hair. And we decided to use those crown braids and pile them up on her head. It looked, you know, when you see them side by side, you do as many looks as you can, you kind of see what's right when you see what doesn't work as well, even though all of them were beautiful in their own way. So the main goal was to get something that would be period correct and not out of the period, but not mainstream also. We wanted everyone to have their own uniqueness. Beatrice, Andrea, she had a very period bob red wig that we set in a period style with finger waves and pin curls, just like they did in those days. But I think we tried every color under the rainbow on her. And for Taylor, you know, when I looked at her hair, put my hands through her hair, I realized that the color was period correct for me. And she had these great bangs, which she wears a lot of time in her personal life. And I took advantage of using her own hair in that way so she could have these soft curls here. And her hair wasn't too long. I could just bundle it up underneath the hat that she was going to wear. So, you know, each person is so different because you don't know if they're going to wear a hat or they're not going to wear a hat. You know, how the hair is cut in modern day, can you do something with it? So each one is so different in the way that I go and start processing processing what they're going to end up to be. Adruitha had worked with Margot and she had done those tests before. And Drew, if you want to talk a little bit about the dark brown that we knew that we were going to do with her, you know, she could probably talk more about that in depth.
Yeah, Drew, can you talk about working with Margot and going through all those color changes? And I'm also curious if, like, anything you guys put together, you were like, no, this is just a disaster, we have to start completely over. Like, does that ever happen on set? Is like, how much does that happen?
It didn't happen on set, but it did happen in the trailer. I remember out of the 20 wigs that I did, because I wasn't quite sure where David wanted to go with the color. He said brown, but she did not look good in a light brown or a medium brown. She needed something, you know, she needed something with some depth. You know, she was a blonde. She looks good in everything. I should rephrase that. She looks good in everything, but there are things that really, really bring her out. So, but I brought everything. So we did the test with the dark brown. It looked great. And she said, but we had all these other wigs, and she said, can I please try these other colors? She wanted to do red, which is actually the color that Beatrice ended up being. And so I said, yeah, let's ask Dave. David said, no, we don't need to see anything else. We know that's the color. So let's try it. So we sat her in front of the camera, and I had my assistant come out with all the wigs, and we'd take one off, put one on, take one off, put one on. We had blonde, we had every color. We were looking at some of them, and it was like, and Margot would look, and it would be like, no, that's not it. But we already had picked the color that we wanted, but we went ahead and we tried everything. And we tried some different things in the trailer after we started the movie. And Lori can tell you, it was, I mean, there was days that's pretty much all I did was test on people. I tried everything. And some of those photos are like, I don't want anybody to see this. I mean, she's gorgeous, and I'm putting all these different colors on her and textures. And it was like, I mean, she could do numerous movies with all the different looks we came up with, you know, before we put the one in front of camera that we ended up using.
That is so true. It's so true, because we did sometimes 10 looks on a person, and it could just be changing the part. It could be making it straight, curly, pull it up, pull it down, pull it to, you know, like we would do as many looks as we can, because it's what David goes with. He wants to see it all, you know, he wants to see it all there, so he knows what's right and what's wrong. And he's trained me in that way, because even though you don't think it might not, you know, that it's not working, it does kind of evolve into something. I just think the more you could try and play, the more secure you get in the direction that you want to take that particular character. You know, Margot was a little different. David was really set on that dark hair. Margot wanted to see the other ones, and then she realized, okay, dark it is, you know. Beatrice, we were trying on blondes, and we really, that red one popped, and that's what we decided to show David. He's all, oh, red, interesting choice. So I said, yeah, we have one of every color. These women, we have very light blonde hair of her natural color, or, you know, Anya's natural color, the almost white blonde. And then we had the deep red of Beatrice. We had the dark brown of Margot. And, you know, we have just the dirty blonde, I would say, for Taylor. We had everyone in a different color, you know, which gave it a nice eclectic group of to look at. It made it interesting, instead of all the same.
What is it like when you have like those huge scenes with all of the casts, like the galas and, you know, all of those extras? How many members of your team does it take to just prepare all of those people for that shoot? And how many are you specifically working on? And how many do you have to delegate and say, okay, you need to take 5, you take 5? Because it's, I mean, there's scenes with a lot of actors.
I think that for us, the main cast, when the gala happened, our whole trailer, we had 5 of us in the trailer. We were all busy with first teamers. So we relied on someone to head up our background work, which, you know, we're at fittings. They did the fittings, they did pre-cutting. We already knew what wigs were going to go on what people, you know, and there was probably 20 or 30 of them a day working. Was there about 20 to 30 of them working?
Yeah, I mean, what really helped us out a lot was the fact that we did pre-fittings. We had somebody stationed in costumes over at Western Costumes, and they were cutting and sending us photos. As soon as they got finished, we would get the photo, and then we would decide in the trailer what they were going to wear, how they were going to wear their hair, what they were going to do. And, you know, we had it charted, and we had it on, you know, we had it on boards. Okay, this is what they're wearing. This is what
we printed a lot of paper.
Yeah,
we
and then,
probably
you
were
know,
not so good with recycling, but that's what made it so great. We had all of their pictures lined up, and, you know, and whatever notes that the hairdresser that was in charge of the fittings would do. They, you know, like, this person doesn't have rollers. They can't roll your hair. This one, she could do this and this and this. So like, as much prep as we can do was done. And then Drew and I would make our notes on each person of what we wanted to see. And we literally labeled, this is the wig for this person. So it was kind of simple. I think it worked out okay.
it was very complicated, but we made it simple.
And they look beautiful. I have to say, when I saw the movie, I was so impressed.
Yeah, I looked
impressed with the background. It was so beautiful. And sometimes you can't experience that because I'm running here and I'm running there. I mean, Drew and I, we had, you know, 4 or 5 people working the same time. And then, you know, she has one of our actors fall down and have to go to the hospital. They didn't know he was wearing a wig, and she's getting called off the stage to like have the doctor take off this wig. And I'm like, where's Drew? You know, like, Drew, that's interesting.
That's a good story. That's a really good story.
But it really happened. I'm like, where's Drew? Well, she's downstairs on the phone with the doctor.
I was on a Zoom. I was on a Zoom telling the emergency room doctor how to take a wig off, because he put him into the tube to do the MRI, and the metal started pulling, and they had to rush.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he had a wig on. And so I was on Zoom trying to tell him how to do it, him and the nurse, while she's up on stage with all these actors on our gala night and trying to, I mean, it was crazy. Anyway, sorry.
But that's
he's
how
okay, right? Everything turned out.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it was great. I don't know how I could have done it without Drew. We were, you know, she would be in the trailer all day working, or I would be in the trailer all day working. It depended on who went to set and first, you know, like, it was like, oh, yeah, no, it was great. Yeah. Hi, Nana. Yeah.
Nana, can you just talk a little bit about balancing all of the beautiful looks with then like Christian Bale, who has an eye pop out once in a while, and, you know, all of these scars, you know, what is your specialty? Like, what do you love to do? And then what do you like to delegate out in terms of like prosthetics or or anything else?
I'm a little bit like, I like to do a bit of all of it. I was trained in Japan and in England, so we do a bit of everything, but my background is fashion. So beauty is a strength, but I also love prosthetics and I love a bit of bloods and guts. So like in the beginning, when Christian, John David, and Margot all covered in blood, it's just like, it's such a high, because, you know, it was really on the go. And David be like, more blood, more blood. And so I like it all. I like it all. And I think I'm quite lucky that I can do a bit of both. So, I mean, it was really special with the ladies, because working also with Chivo, we had the most beautiful girls. We had Margot, Anya, Taylor-Joy, Taylor Swift, Andrea. I mean, gorgeous woman. So, and it was beauty, but I think what was quite important for David and for Chivo was like, particularly Chivo, he wanted the faces to be illuminated, and David also wanted the ladies to look like the Hollywood portraits with the black and white, where you see a lot of shading and it looks very beautiful, but there's a lot, we worked a lot with lights and shades, and I went like 3 shades lighter with the ladies. So, and then Chivo wanted the surrounding or the set dressing to be darker, so it almost looked like the faces were lit up. So I worked very closely with Chivo and David, working on the saturation of the colors, the skin tones for the beauty part. So we worked a lot with saturation, with colors, with lighting. And then yet with the prosthetic, you know, we had like Christian was done by Chris Gallagher. So Chris Gallagher is another wonderful makeup artist who worked with Christian many times, and they work together on their looks. But it's like, you know, the fresh wounds, then the aged wounds. So you can see, you know, many years later how the wound changes into the old scars. And then, you know, the prosthetic eye popping out, like also Mike Myers had them too, but you know, they never popped out, so to say. So we work with contact lenses to make them look a little bit odd and things. And then we had, you know, so it's very hard to say, like we had, you know, Ed Begley when he was poisoned, you know, the autopsy. Very early in the meetings, we had meetings with David, the producers, with Drew and Lori, and we were talking about how would somebody look like when they're poisoned, you know? And David keeps saying, I want him to be blue. And then what kind of poison would it be that your skin turns blue? And David keeps saying, like, you know, I want him to have like a silver blue face. So then there was like a lot of research, and we tested on, not just on Ed Begley, but we tested on other people, how we could get the effect of like certain bits of the face being very discolored through the blue, through the poison, and all the veins and things like that. And then that's, as a makeup artist, it's just pure fun, you know, because you can really paint. It's like a canvas. It's not just makeup. It's like you can actually literally paint their faces, which is such a
That's
treat.
kind of creepy. That was creepy.
And
When I saw that, it was creepy in person, but when I saw it on the big screen, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, like I think people react to it because
Good,
of,
yeah.
yes.
Good, yeah.
But also, like, for example, like, sorry to interrupt, the David was very specific on John David. Like, Margot is a young nurse, but also in the story, she's an artist, and she collects all the shrapnels from, you know, from the bullets and from the metal, and makes them into teapots and stuff. So, you know, when John David comes in and he's got all the shrapnel in his shoulders or in his face, David really wanted to be able to film, to see that she pulls out the metal out of his wounds. So, you know, we had to think about how deep the wounds are on the back, you know, so we can put the shrapnels in. We had to really test around with different kind of materials, making certain things thicker almost. So, you know, if you would put normal blood into a wound and you would put the metal things, it would fall out with the gravity. So we had to really think out of the box how we can mix it up, making it thicker, so Margot could actually physically pull out the metal out of his back and things like that. So again, David like kind of really pushes you to think out of the box, or he would say, I want the sweat to be coming down on his shoulder, on of his face, and I don't want it to run. So you have to think, what material do I have to use that it stops, you know, and the gravity doesn't pull. So it's like a constant like challenge, but a wonderful challenge working with David. And it's fun. And you come to work and you're like, okay, what are we going to do today? What kind of like exciting things are going to happen? Because it changed all the time. And, you know,
Something
there was
happened.
yes.
There was one time we had lightning near us, and in the film industry, if there's lightning within a certain amount of miles, you have to shut down your electricity. So all the lights went out, and he's yelling, "Get the flashlights! It's going to shoot in the dark. We're going to shoot in the dark. More blood, more blood." And it was during that scene, and it was like everyone had flashlights, and they were shooting, and like so it didn't matter like that we didn't have lights. I mean, it's that kind of crazy chaos that brings something remarkable to the screen. So you have to be prepared for everything. It's like, oh, good, we get a break. We can all go to the restroom or whatever we need to do that you can never do. But nope. The lights are out. Everyone's holding flashlights, like, and he's going to shoot something. That's just, you know, it doesn't stop.
Well, it certainly turned out incredible. Congratulations to all of you for your work on the film. It's so impressive what you pulled off with just the sheer amount of the cast and all of the obvious obstacles that you went through while you were filming. Best of luck to each of you at, you know, all of the upcoming Guild Awards, Oscars, and everything in between. Well deserved.
Thank you.
And thank you for
Thank
speaking
you.
with me today about Amsterdam.
Thanks for having us.